Women make up about half our workforce, but they still make 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. That is wrong. And in 2014, it's an embarrassment. Women deserve equal pay for equal work.
Women make 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes. This video explains the complexity behind this simple statistic and possible solutions for a more equal future. First, what steps has our government taken in the past to help alleviate this disparity? About 50 years ago, John F. Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act of 1963 as an act towards abolishing wage disparity based on sex. Before this act was passed, men and women had separate job listings with separate pay scales, separate and of course unequal. After the passing of this act, it was illegal for employers to pay women less for reasons solely based on their gender. Unfortunately, other considerations were and still are used as a scapegoat to pay women less. Another important federal law is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It prohibits discrimination in employment on the basis of sex, race, color, national origin, and religion. However, it places a 180-day limit from the date of the last incident of discrimination to file a complaint with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. This restriction led to the famous Lilly Ledbetter case. Ledbetter filed a salary discrimination suit but did not receive compensation because the Supreme Court felt that her lawsuit was untimely because she had filed suit more than 100 days after the discrimination had been inflicted upon her. Interestingly enough, all the judges in favor of no compensation were men. It's been 50 years since the Equal Pay Act was passed, but women are still being paid less than men for the same work. President Obama and Congress are now trying to turn the situation around to make an equal playing field. This would not only help on an individual basis, but it would also help our economy.
I think you only maximize your society, maximize your culture, maximize your economy if everyone is maximizing their potential. So when you begin to place these restrictions, like gender restrictions, if you have these cultural restrictions on women, then only half of your population can be engineers. So it goes to assume that you're going to lose half of your engineers, you're going to lose half of your potential. Sometimes we just very nonchalantly bring these topics up to boys, but we don't bring them up to girls.
The very first bill that President Obama signed into law was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. This bill amended the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by eliminating the 180-day statute of limitations for filing gender discrimination suits. 5 years later, Obama signed 2 executive orders to help lessen the gender wage gap. The first executive order prohibits federal contractors from punishing employees who do not practice pay secrecy, and the second order instructs the Department of Labor to create new regulations requiring federal contractors to report wage-related data to the government. Both these orders were made in hopes that wages would become more public, keeping employers from putting women in the dark about their male counterparts' wages. Another recent congressional attempt is the Paycheck Fairness Act. This bill will strengthen the Equal Pay Act of 1963 by ameliorating the existing legal tools available to remedy pay discrimination. This bill will continue the work of the executive orders Obama signed on Equal Pay Day. While this might lead to equal pay by reducing pay secrecy, some say this bill is simply a political ploy for women votes, or that it will eliminate flexibility and make it harder for employers to reward good work. Senate failed to pass the bill in early April of this year. This bill is currently sitting in committee. Unfortunately, it will be blocked by the Senate for other political reasons besides evening the gender pay gap. Some people believe that the key to solving the gender wage gap is not through laws setting more regulations and reports from employers, but through federal laws that ensure workplace improvements that encourage women to partake in more challenging jobs. The disparity between men and women can also be attributed to women's lack of participation in jobs in the fields of science and math. Women generally make up less than 35% of the workforce in their respective STEM occupations. Even when women work these jobs, they do not receive equal pay. According to the National Associations of Colleges and Employers' study of wage differences in 2009, the average starting salary for bachelor's degree recipients in mechanical engineering was $59,000, compared to $50,000 for bachelor's degree recipients in economics. Therefore, reducing gender segregation in college majors, specifically increasing women's participation across key STEM fields, particularly those where they are most underrepresented, could be critical to reducing the gender pay gap between college-educated men and women. Even very women-friendly organizations haven't had the opportunity to hire as many women as they could.
I participate in the hiring side of things is that my manager puts out a job description. I help him go through the resumes and to give him my opinion on who we should get in and who we shouldn't get in, and the type of positions that we have been looking for in the recent past, mostly electrical engineers, aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers. There were no female resumes that came across our desk, so we didn't get a chance to evaluate any females for the positions at all.
Pay discrimination is not only an alarming statistic, it affects people's daily lives.
Times and pockets where things might happen. I know from my personal experience that I was in this position as the budget officer, it's been 10 years ago. And when I left to go work at the Department of Ed, I was making mid to upper 50s. 6 years later I came back, the position had opened up. There was one gentleman who had held the position while I was gone, and when I came back, the position, it had changed slightly a little bit. It had a few added duties, but it was now paying $100,000. And since I was making that much, it worked that I could come back, but it was very surprising that having sat in the job for 4 years and had an increase of 2 or 3% a year, suddenly the job almost doubled. So I was like, wow. I don't want to say that it was because there was a middle-aged white guy there.
Another option is childcare in the workplace. Most parents cannot work outside the home unless they have childcare for their children. However, there is currently no national system of childcare that exists for children who aren't old enough to attend kindergarten. This puts women at a disadvantage because mothers often will take a break from working to take care of their children instead of fathers. This means less pay and less opportunity to move up when they return, if they return. However, installing high-quality childcare services in the workplace can be very expensive.
Actually met with social services and we joined with the sheriff's office looking at potentially setting up a daycare. Would that help our employees? And in the end, the cost, when you're faced with limited resources, that was just a cost we couldn't afford at the time. So we didn't go that route, but we do continue to try to keep our eyes on ways that we can potentially encourage and entice people.
There is also the question of dominance in the workplace. Many situations in science settings end with women partaking in menial chores, like cleaning the beakers, while men do the more important jobs, like entering the data.
It creates a natural inferiority in the workplace, which leads to inferiority in pay. This issue requires a break in societal tendencies to be fixed.
Aerojet Rocketdyne, we used to be Aerojet before that, and before that we were Atlantic Research Corporation. And at least our site has a very high percentage of female professionals. We have chemists, we have aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers. A few years back, the head of the engineering department was a female. Gainesville is, a lot of project engineers are female, of certain program engineers and project engineers. Obviously it's not even, it's not a 50-50 split. But I would think that there's a very high percentage, and I can't give you those numbers, that are females. I see women engineers the same as men engineers. They are trained and they think alike and they perform their jobs the same. So women engineers are treated the same as men engineers. So I don't see them as women or men, I just see them as engineers.
Pay discrimination, even for women who work full-time, can cause a staggering $431,000 loss of income over the course of a career. So how can we fix this problem? How can we reduce wage disparity? How can we reduce the gender pay gap? Some of the main solutions to this have already been mentioned in this video, but there are so many more. Individuals as well as companies need to take these steps in order to make equal pay for equal work a reality.